Dear viewers, welcome to this episode of Your Life, Your Money. Everyone wants excellent outcome from your investment activity. They want highest return. They want very quick return. And to get this, what all the things they do? They chase returns. They look at on the Google to see which funds are giving them the highest return. And they try to invest in these funds. You'll be surprised. This is not what you need to be doing. You need to be doing something else. You should be focusing on what you can control and should not be focusing on what you cannot control. In this episode, I'm going to give you 10 points which you can focus and create a very, very favorable investment outcome. This is NRI Money Clinic for you, and I am Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt, your financial guide for a happy living.
NRI Money Clinic. No hype, just the right advice.
To get the best outcome from your investments, your focus should be on things which you can control. Your focus should not be things on which you have no control upon. For example, you try to focus on a rate of return what you get, and you'll be surprised to know you cannot control the rate of return. The rate of return that you get depends on several factors which is beyond your control. For example, what is the rate of growth in economy? What is the inflation rate that is there in the economy? What is the interest rate cycle? What is the liquidity position of the market? None of these things are under your control. If you try to time the market and if you think this is the way it is going to be performing in the market, you will try to do mistakes. Likewise, people try to invest by looking at the advertisement which come from the fintech companies, or you will get moved by the rankings of the funds or the stocks or PMS. But this is not the way to get the correct return. If you just focus on things what you can control at your end, make no mistake, you will get handsomely good outcome out of your investment activities. There are many things to be considered here, but keeping the length of the video in mind, I am bringing to you 10 things you can control which will decide the outcome of investment. And let us look at all these things one by one. Point number 1, focus on what should be the wealth that you should create. Instead of focusing on getting on the rate of return, why don't you focus on what should be the wealth that you should create? Let me explain here. Instead of asking to get 20% rate of return, how do you like if you say, I should have 1 crore by 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 30 years from now? Put a figure around that, so that becomes a definition for you. My wealth should be measurable to that extent. How can you control? How much of investments you make. The amount of wealth you create is directly proportional to the amount of money you invest. Amount of money you invest is a factor which you can control. You can increase your investment, decrease your investment, be a regular disciplined investor. This is under your control. More the money you put, irrespective of what rate of return you get, it is directly proportional to the final outcome of how much wealth you create. Point number 2, how much is the time interval that you have, or the tenure that you have, or the time gap between the day you invest to the day you are looking at creating that wealth? That also matters, and this can be given by you. Whether you invest for 1 year or 10 years or 30 years is a factor which you control. When you invest, the best thing for you to is give more time. You may have less money, but if you have more time, the power of compounding works far better when the time horizon is more. You start investing and start looking at the results in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. It may not give you the required result. So you have to give more time. Time works in your favor. Time heals many of the mistakes that you do all along, but time will definitely deliver. Give more time for your investments to work for you, and it will definitely give the desired results. The third point that you can control is the time of starting your investment. There are people who draw plans, they do their due diligence, ask friends, relatives, wait for a time and say, I'll start after 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. They keep postponing starting the investment. See, the time and tide will not wait for anyone. The quicker you start, the better the outcome. Instead of starting 6 months later, with a lesser amount of money, you start it today. Instead of starting after 1 year, make a beginning beginning today. How quickly you start, how much more time that you give will dictate how much of wealth you create. This factor is fully under your control. Make best use of it to create favorable outcomes. Point number 4. Setting up the right expectation. This is something which is right under your control. It is very essential that in the beginning of your investment process, you have to set up your expectation the correct way. What do? People want the highest return. When you say highest return, it becomes very abstract. What is highest return? If you say 15 is highest return, then 16 is not highest return or 20 is not highest return. What is highest return? You cannot put scale around that. So one looks smaller, one looks bigger, that becomes abstract. Instead of that, let us look at in a different way. Suppose if you say wealth gets created only when you beat inflation, and inflation is not under your control, but you can say the investment outcome should generate at least 3 to 6% over and above the inflation, then it becomes measurable. If the inflation is, let's say, 6% and you generate 9 to 12%, that is 3 to 6% over and above the inflation, and you will be invariably creating a wealth effect from your investment activity. So you have to describe it very, very clearly. Let's take a real life example here now. For example, you send your children to a school or a college, and your expectation is that your son or daughter should get the first rank. It depends on two factors. One, your son being of that mettle, putting the required efforts, and the other children also are of not of that magnitude. So it depends on somebody else. Likewise, the top rank can be only for one person or could be shared by a few in case if there is a tie. It's not possible for each and everyone to get the top rank. But if your expectation is in a different way, let's say that your children should get a distinction, or they should get acceptable grades, or they should become successful in life, irrespective of what rank they get it is possible for each and every student in the class to aim for that and reach there. Your expectation setting from your investment exercise should be similar. The best way is, I tell people, is you don't need an investment advisor, you don't need stock market, you don't need anything. You can go and put your money in the bank deposit and the bank gives you a certain rate of return. I call this as the hurdle point. When you invest, fix yourself a target. How much should be more than my hurdle rate or my opportunity cost, which is the bank FD rate? If you get 3 to 6% over the bank FD rate, then you are successful investor. The bank FD rate is invariably linked to inflation in the long run. So bank rates have to be 1% over and above the inflation rate. We cannot say every time it will happen, but by and large you can say the bank rate is in sync with the inflation. If you generate 3 to 6% over the bank FD rate, you are a superstar from your investing activity. Set up your expectation clearly. Don't put a number on it. Rather see how much more you can generate than the inflation and put an achievable number. 3 to 6% appears to be an achievable number. If I check through the history, in any country, it is possible to achieve that number. Point number 5, to save on the taxes. One of the easiest way to get a good return is to save on the taxes. People overlook. People get so much focused on getting a higher rate of return, they neglect the taxes. What you should actually consider is post-tax return. You get a certain amount of return. You are liable to pay taxes on this, or you are not liable to pay taxes on this. If you save on the taxes, if you choose such products or if you choose such strategies which will minimize your tax incidence or defer your tax incidence, the rate of return you generate can be much higher. Focus on tax saving, how you can save the taxes. Make best use of all the facilities given by the government or the laws of the land to reduce on the taxes. That's the easiest way to generate a better return from your investments. Point number 6, taking the help of an advisor. This is in your control. You can decide to do it yourself or you can take the help of an advisor. What is the argument in favor of do it yourself? It costs to have an advisor. It costs me money. And you get so much of bombardment in the form of advertisement, fintech companies, then there are individual advisors who say that you save so much of your money. A regular advisor who works closely with you is always beneficial for you. If you're not working with a regular advisor, what you know is how much of cost saving that you will do. It's just about 0.5%, 0.6, 0.7% is your saving. That is a defined amount you will know. But if you are not working with an advisor, what happens? Then you do not know the cost of your mistakes. Then you do not know whether you are going in the right direction or not. I have evaluated countless portfolios of lots of people. The cost of not optimizing, the cost of emotional turbulence that happens, the cost of indecisiveness, the cost of consulting unwanted people like friends and relatives are far outweigh than working with a regular advisor. See, look at your own life. You don't have to be focusing so much on cost saving. See, we can prepare coffee at home, but we go out and have coffee in a hotel or in Starbucks. We can manage with a small car, but we will buy a big car, an expensive car. We do the same thing with jewelry. We have all the required knowledge on Google when it comes to question of medical conditions. But why do you go to a doctor? It costs you money. You know everything that your children need to study and it's available on Google. But why do you send your children to the schools and colleges or to the coaching classes, and it all costs you money? You think in a particular way when it is a question of other things. When it comes to question of your own monies, you hesitate to use the services of the financial planners or advisors. Advisors are great observers. When they are observing you, they do not get moved by the emotions. When you are handling your own finances, the biggest problem that you face is your emotional outburst. These emotions are highly injurious to your financial health. Think about it. If you think you need advisor's help, you need professionals to assist you, you can make best uses of services provided by NRI Money Clinic. We have team of experts on the ground to help you, and if you have an intention, all that you have to do is reach out to us through a WhatsApp message. Our number is given in the description box. We have also provided a link over there. Click on the link, it takes you to the WhatsApp, and send an exploratory message to us, and our team of experts are ever ready to help you. The next point is, do not ask for any opinion on your investments from your friends and relatives. Highly injurious to your outcome of investment or your financial well-being is asking for opinion from your friends and relatives. I tell you this for sure. Do not ask for any opinion on your investments from your friends and relatives. They are not professionals. They may be knowledgeable, but they may be giving you an advice or passing remark based on their experience, their knowledge, and what they perceive. But your life situations is known only to you. What happened and the advice that comes from your friends and relatives does not carry responsibility. It's a casual advice. Wherever the advice comes very casual, you should shun such advice. The best thing is not to discuss your financial things, the way you invest with any of these people, friends, colleagues, relatives. It just doesn't matter what they say. What you're trying to do by asking this with them is a kind of reassuring yourself what you have done is right. The right persons for that is asking an advisor, read yourself, gain experience, and make sure and learn from your own experience. That's fine. Do not ask your friends and relatives what you have done is right or wrong. They have no role to play, and whatever the comments that they make may not fit your requirement. The next point that you can control is the process. The process dictates the return. Process involves everything. For example, risk profile, the timing, the discipline, compartment, where you should invest, when should you invest, what to be done first, which one to attempt first. All these things are a part and parcel of process. There is a video on our channel by name A Proven Method of Financial Planning. Search for this video. I'll give a link for this video in the description box as well, where I have given how the process has to be set up. And if you are a do-it-yourself investors, again for do-it-yourself investors, I have produced one exclusive video for the do-it-yourself investors, how you can do things on your own. Unless you are a compelling do-it-yourself investors, I would suggest you use the services of an advisor, which is far better than to do things on your own. There is one more video on our channel where I have produced which says why do-it-yourself is not a good model for most people. It's a good idea. You watch all these videos which will give you an idea about how you have to set up processes, why it becomes very difficult at times for you to know what you are doing is right or wrong. The ninth point which you can control is the asset allocation. Asset allocation is where all you should invest, what kind of assets you should invest. Should you invest in bank equities, real estate, or what type of asset? Remember one thing, All assets will not perform simultaneously. When the interest rates are very high, the equity markets may not perform. When the equity is performing, the bank FD rates may not be suitable for you. So there is a behavior which is unpredictable between these different asset classes. You need to be knowing the behavior of different asset classes under different economic conditions. You have to blend them together. Irrespective of what happens in the marketplace, you should have all assets in your portfolio. All the assets will not perform simultaneously. People try to tilt themselves towards a performing asset. If real estate is doing very well, they go completely towards real estate and they think that they will make a lot of money. What happened between 2012 to 2022? For 10 long years, real estate did not do anything. I was having a fact find session with one of the persons in US, a young guy, 32 years old guy. He said, I bought a site in Hyderabad and it jumped up by 30% in the last 6 months. What if I buy more? Please understand, you are moved by what's happening in that asset class, but that's not a daily story. If that asset has moved up by 30% in the last 6 months, it doesn't mean that in the next 6 months it will go up by 30% or every 6 months it moves up by 30%. You must have, in addition to real estate, the other forms of assets like your gold, debt, equity, and others as well. So the asset allocation is a very scientific process. It involves a great amount of judgment, understanding of how different asset classes behave in different economic conditions. This asset allocation in your portfolio is something which you can control either yourself or with the help of an advisor. Point number 10, emotional outbursts. The most important of all, the one which spoils everything, emotional outbursts. You take emotional decisions. You go and invest in something because you are moved by emotions. You sell a fund because you are moved by an emotion. Emotion spoils the entire work that you have done because of emotional outburst. You can control it, but you have to be very, very conscious about controlling your emotions. Emotions can completely spoil a good job. And most cases, what I have observed is people become very impulsive, people become very fearful, and they sell it or they buy it what they don't need or what they should not be selling and create disaster. How to control emotions? It's easier said than done. It's not easy. It's not easy even for a fund manager to control the emotions. But they have systems in place. They have put strategies in place. They know what to do and what not to do and how much to do. See, for example, fund managers will not take rash decisions. They'll take decisions over years or over months, and they have predetermined levels at which they'll enter or they'll exit. So they define a process to avoid these mistakes of emotional outbursts. One another way of controlling the emotions is once you set up your investment activity or when you are invested in something, do not look at it at regular intervals of time. It's not required to see at every point of time and get worried about it. If you look at it once in a year, that's more than sufficient. If you forget for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, if you have done a good job, even if you have done an ordinary job, the results will be far better than you regularly look at those investment returns. This is something which has been put on you. You are made to believe that you have to constantly monitor your investment, which is not true at all. If an investment requires to be monitored so extensively, it's not an investment, it's a speculation. So control your emotions. One another way that you can control your emotions is by directing your emotions. Instead of directing your emotions on the rate of return you are generating or your impulsiveness to see your assets perform at regular intervals of time, think about your emotions towards the life goal. Think that I should have a certain amount of wealth after 10 years, 30 years, 20 years. You have enough time. Time works in your favor, and direct your emotions to having a larger wealth or the corpus during your retirement, or enough money to educate your children, or enough money to buy that asset or any of your life goal, and direct it towards that, and do not direct towards this particular fund or particular stock or a particular asset class, and that will prevent you from taking unwanted decision. Needless to say, say advisors are the best help to handhold you, control you, not to take decisions out of emotional outburst. We face this situation very often. I tell my experts, I tell my own clients, when you are disturbed, do not take the decision without you telling me. Let me think about it. Instead of one person thinking, let me think from my side also, and what decision I would think in your situation, or what is happening in the market, what is the best course of action. The slowing down of the action, a counseling by another individuals helps you to conquer the problems that come with the emotions. To be successful, you must conquer emotions, and it is in your control, and it requires a conscious effort from your side. As long as you do not control your emotions, make no mistake, you will not hit success in your investment activity. Dear viewers, hope the 10 points that I have given you, which you can control, if you practice, you will create outstanding results from your investment. Do practice them. If you liked it, do not forget to give me a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed for the channel, please hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon. Don't forget to share these videos with your near and dear ones, friends and relatives, and please let me know your views in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching this episode on NRI Money Clinic. I shall be back with you with yet another topic in yet another episode of Your Life, Your Money. Till then, stay safe. Jai Hind.
Press the bell icon for more details and subscribe our channel.